everyone. Good evening. What are the 5 levels of attachments? How do we know we have an attachment? How do we know we even created one? Our guest tonight says we're perfect, but a lot of us struggle with that. We're going to talk about that and much, much more tonight. In tonight's Reawaken You, I'm thrilled to be back. Took a couple weeks off with recorded interviews to go enjoy my honeymoon. And while I was in Rome, I kept thinking, back in the day, Rome was where it was happening, and all roads would lead to Rome. And so that's been my new saying since I've gotten back. And what do I mean by all roads lead to Rome? What I mean is everything in our life is a direct result of what we do. If you don't like your job, you can change that, but you create your reality. And if someone irritates you, guess what? Bringing it back home to you. That gives you an opportunity to figure out what inside of me is responding to this. Why am I so irritated? So this week, I want you to have all roads lead to Rome and just take time to explore maybe in your life where you can work on something or heal or change your reality. Okay, I'm ready to tell you about tonight's guest. At the age of 14, Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. apprenticed to his father and his grandmother. He was called upon to translate his grandmother's prayers, lectures, and workshops from Spanish into English. Through this, Don Miguel Jr. came to understand the power of faith. He saw firsthand how she manifested her intent to heal people, both physically and spiritually. His apprenticeship lasted 10 years. In his mid-20s, his father intensified his training and said, "Find your way out. Go home and master death by becoming alive." Don Miguel Jr. is married and has 2 children. As a Nagual, he begins to pass along the wisdom and the tools of his family's tradition in helping others to achieve their own personal freedom, optimal physical and spiritual health. Miguel Jr. has taken the lessons of his father and grandmother and discovered his own personal freedom. Welcome.
Hi, Julie. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
I love the book. As we were talking earlier, I have a couple thoughts. Here it is, and we will tell you at the end of the show how you can get your own copy. This has become a bathtub book for me. And what I mean for that is I have a stack of books, the bathtub's where all the creativity happens, where I like to do my serious reading, and this book has become such a template for me to improve my life and to continue to go deeper and learn more. So I've got a bunch of questions, and I want to remind our viewers and listeners, if you have a question for Don Miguel, you can chat it, Skype or call, and we'll make sure it gets asked. But can you briefly explain to our viewers who might not know, what is Toltec wisdom?
Well, Toltec wisdom, the word Toltec is a Nahuatl word that means artist in English. So Toltec wisdom, you can see it in 2 ways. One, as a cultural belief that we're all creation, we're all manifestation of life, and our art is how we live life. So our life is the canvas by which we create and manifest with our intent, our great manifestation. So throughout every generation, we learn our way by engaging life. You can say my grandmother and my father taught me the tradition, but it is life that taught me the most. So the Toltec wisdom, or the Toltec tradition in that essence, reflects this communion we have with life, and that every moment that we're alive, we have the opportunity to live life to the greatest extent that our awareness allows us to create our authentic self, which is in a way to live life with our authentic unconditional love, or to live life conditionally. So the freedom lies in that choice.
And one of the things, and it was early on before you started getting attachments, but I love, because you said your grandmother suggested we learn to listen, how to listen to life. What did she mean by that?
Well, when we're listening to life, or you can say when we begin to process how we interact with life, we're so busy in our head processing and translating every single experience that at one point we stop engaging life and we're completely in our own head. When we're completely paying attention to what our mind believes should be, then in that moment we stop being this communion with life, that we start not engaging life and we miss out on life. So to learn to listen is the ability to be able to perceive what the world has for us without us projecting onto the world a should be. For example, If you were to talk to me, and you and I being in conversation, you'll be sharing with me your story of your life. And as I'm listening, I'll project onto you what I think should be. And instead of actually listening to what you're saying, I'm listening to the words, judging them, processing them in the way that I think life should be. And that when that happens, I stop listening to you altogether. If our communication is already distorted from that point, then whatever answer I have for you will be a total distortion. So to learn to listen is to allow life to be an experience. That as we learn from life, without my narrator in my mind telling me what should be or how it has to be, but allowing the lessons to completely sink in, to allow the opportunity to listen how you perceive life allows me to see from a totally different point of view a possibility. And when I hear and see that possibility, then my horizon or my ability to make choices opens up because I'm able to see a life from a totally unique way, different from that I've known.
I love that. One of the things I've tried to do in my life lately is see things from different perspectives that I didn't think of before, and ones that someone shared with me. When I started, first of all, I love everything you've said. And what I would call it is, and I would say myself for this, that I was sleepwalking through life. Mm-hmm. And so until some certain experiences happened, and one of the reasons I do the show is because I want people to find the book or the person that speaks to them, that they can hear that, for them to reawaken their brilliance and start living the amazing life that we're meant to live, because so many of us sleepwalk through life. Why do you think that is?
Well, you can say that as we become attached to our beliefs, to an idea of what should be, we begin to project that image onto the world. So you can say our decision making becomes automatic. The more attached we are to a belief, and the more the need for it to be right, that our choice, how we make life, which is yes and no, the expression of my intent, becomes automatic. So I'm saying yes without awareness. I'm saying no without awareness. And when that happens, I'm totally going into this automatic mode where all I'm seeing is a distortion, or you can say an illusion. Because the reason why that's important is because when I perceive information, that information allows me to feed what I know in order to make a choice. When I distort that information, then the choices I make is not in harmony with life. It's not in harmony with truth, because my beliefs and my attachments have totally become a filter. So my yes and no become automatic from that point of view, because they stop being free will, but now they're totally distorted, or you can say corrupted, by a belief that has to be real according to my domestication. And I become completely submerged in this illusion. I once had this question: when was the moment where we lost sight of our authentic self? And the answer to that question is the moment we prefer the illusion or the lie over the truth. And the reason why is because the illusion and the lie makes us feel comfortable or safe, or we want it better than the truth. So that's the moment where our communion with life completely becomes a distortion and a dream, and we become asleep.
Now, I love that. That's beautiful. Can you talk really briefly, because you talk about in the book, what is our authentic self and how we know we're being our authentic self? Because I don't think 5 or 6 years ago I could have answered that question. I would love for you to talk about that.
I wasn't able to answer that either. I had to learn that from myself as well. And it came, my father and my grandmother were wonderful teachers, but it came when I lost my uncle. When he passed away, I was holding his hand. And if you've ever seen anyone pass away, you might relate to what I'm about to say. I was holding his hand in the ICU. He had an injury to his brain that began to swell, and to the point where he was non-responsive. He had primitive reaction even after they cut out part of his cranium. And even when they let him go, decided to let him go to stop the life support, the whole family got into the room and we were holding a part of him. And I was fortunate enough to be holding his hand. A moment before, I can feel him. I can feel his warmth. I can feel my uncle there. Then, after that last breath, which is something that's it's really impossible to mimic, or the beep or the sound of the heart monitor, he wasn't there. He left, and his body became an object because he disappeared. As he left his body stopped being something that's inanimate. That's animated. It became something that's inanimate. And in that moment of life, in that lesson, as I said goodbye to my uncle, and I love him very much, dearly, he was my godfather, he taught me the greatest lesson I have. The difference between me and my corpse, because this body that you're seeing moving right now will one day be a corpse, is that at this very moment I am alive. I am this living being that is able to move this body, that is animating this body. Right now you're listening to me putting in air into my diaphragm, slowly letting it out, and as it goes through the trachea, through the vocal cords, and through the muscles in my mouth, I'm making sounds. But I'm moving. I'm animating this body. You can say the authentic self is the name that describes the energy that moves this body. You can call it life, you can call it spirit, you can call it source, or you can simply soul meaning. But Physics 1 tells us that in order to move a body, you need a force to move that body. Well, I am the force that moves this body. I am this force that gives life to this body. And just as much as I give life to this body, I also give life to my mind. Because just as when I let go of this body and this body becomes a corpse, my mind will cease to exist. So the authentic self is just a name that describes this energy that is truly who I am. I am life. I give life to this body. I give life to this mind. And I am the whole. So you can say that the authentic self is the moment we become aware that we are alive at this very moment. And because we are alive at this very moment, we can go in any direction in life. Just as much as I'm able to move this body, for example, I can move my arm and push it this close to you. That requires me to say yes, and thou shalt be done. I'm able to move this energy. If I say no, then I'm not going to move this energy. I'm not going to put my hands in front of the camera. So how I express this energy, this intent, is through my intention, which is that a form of thought, which is yes and no. I control my intent with this yes and no, and allows me to express how I want to live life. So when I become aware not only that I'm the authentic self, meaning that I'm this living being that has the complete capacity to evolve, to grow, with every yes, I'm going to move this body and make it engage life. And when I say no, I'm not going to use the energy to move this body. Thus, I will manifest it. With every yes, I will manifest something. With every no, I won't. And that's the energy, this constant communing with life, a dance, if you will. It allows me to become aware that this individual that you see is this living being that has the complete opportunity to be anything in life. All I require is my willingness to say yes in order to manifest it.
Now, you talk about how we domesticate ourselves in your book. So could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Domestication is a system of reward and punishment by which we model an individual. For every reward, for every time we get it right, we get the reward. For every time we get it wrong, we get a punishment. Since we're emotional beings, our reward for getting it right is acceptance, and it feels like love. For every time we don't live up to the expectation and we don't do it right, then we get the punishment. An example of domestication, and I'll use myself once again. Imagine me at the age of 8, a child who's just learned how to control this yes and no, to assert myself, this free will. And my grandmother gives me a bowl of soup. And I say, no, I don't want to eat it. I say, no. Since I'm a father now, I can totally understand what my grandmother did here. But this is what she did. She tried to first convince me to eat, and I say no. Then eventually she went and said, Miguel, do you know how many children are starving in Africa and throughout the world right now? It is a sin to waste food. Since I don't want to be a sinner in the eyes of my grandmother, I say, yes, grandmother, and I begin to eat my soup, and I finish it. And at the end, my grandmother goes, good boy, that's great, wonderful, thank you. In that moment, with that little belief of conditional love, the reward for me to finish the soup was her acceptance and not to look like a sinner in front of my grandmother's eyes. And if I didn't eat it, well, the punishment is I'll be a sinner. That was so ingrained in me that even 30 years later, at the age of 38, my grandmother has passed 5 years ago, but I can go to a restaurant and they can serve me a big plate of food. And halfway through the meal, my body's telling me the truth. I am full. I can't eat anymore. So I make the choice to stop. Consciously or subconsciously, I hear in my mind, it's a sin to waste food. And consciously or subconsciously, I go, yes, grandmother, and I'll continue to eat. And I'll finish the whole plate. Even though I didn't want to eat it, I have that mentality, oh, don't waste this food. It's going to be a sin. You don't want to be a sinner. And I finish it, completely going against my body, completely going against myself. And you can say that's the thing of domestication, that it's such a powerful condition or agreement that controls this intent, that controls this free will, that even 30 years later, it has the capacity to influence a choice, even go against myself. And even though my grandmother has been gone for 5 years, you know, like an animal that you domesticate, like a dog or a lion, cats, well, you don't really domesticate cats. Cats domesticate you. But when you domesticate a dog, for example, if you stop domesticating him or her, eventually the dog goes back to his or her wild ways. It goes back to nature. Some things here or there might remain, but it goes back to its natural state. Well, with us humans, even after the domesticator stops domesticating us, we grab the baton and we start domesticating ourselves because we have this narrator in our mind reinforcing it with that condition. So if we can understand it from this example, and mind you, I'm using a very light example, I think in many other people, many other families, that domestication might be a lot more severe, but it shows how that in a condition can override the truth. At that moment, had I been paying attention to my body and respecting my body, I would honor that moment when I say, I am full. I don't want to eat anymore. Yet the domestication is that strong that I finish the plate, completely going against myself. And that's the crucial thing about domestication. It completely takes away our free will, even if it's coming from the voice inside our mind or even the voice of someone we love. When we completely surrender and give away power of our own free will to a condition, then we are domesticated and we are no longer free.
That's really powerful. And I'm a relatively still new cat mommy, and you're completely right. The cat runs our house. I have learned that lesson. Think that that's really wonderful. One of the things, and before I forget, I want to remind our listeners and viewers, if you have a question for Don Miguel, you can call, chat, or Skype it in. We want to get your questions answered. I had a really huge aha moment when I was reading your book, and we start to get in the attachments. I had to have a funny story with that, but you say a commercial has no power over us unless we agree with its message. So why is that? Because I'm reading that, I'm like, aha, because I would think I'd see these, commercials on with all these skinny mini women. I'm like, come on now, why don't you put a real woman in the commercial? But you're absolutely right. If I agreed with its message, I wouldn't have gotten irritated.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's like if we use the same example or just continue to expand on that example with the soup, somewhere along the line, someone said that in order to be beautiful, we have to follow this model or this type of person. When I was a goth, I used to be a little goth kid, and I used to be anorexic. And I used to think that in order to be attractive, I had to be thin. So I was actually 20 pounds underweight when I was, for that period of my life, during the age of 17 to 20, I was anorexic. And that realization of a commercial only having power if we agree with it is that somewhere along the line, someone taught us this message of, in order to be worthy of someone's love, we have to live up to this expectation. And just like a commercial, someone's opinion could be my girlfriend, it could be my friends, it could even be my own opinion. It only has power if I agree with it. The reason why I say that is that if we go back to the explanation of the authentic self, that I control this yes and no, that if I say yes, I'm able to move this body to manifest something. And if I say no, I won't use this energy. So when I have this belief that controls that exact choice making, kind of like when we were talking about being asleep or being awake, we fall asleep when we give away power of our free will to something or an idea. And when we give away our power to a commercial or to a model or to an advertisement, that their intent is simply to sell. And just like a child who you want them to eat the soup, the way you get it to eat the soup is to make them follow this little carrot of conditional love. And so powerful that 30 years later they'll still do it. Well, it's the same concept with that image of beauty. Whenever we stand in front of a mirror and we judge ourselves, we're judging ourselves for an image that we're not. We create an image of what is the perfect us. And we judge ourselves for not living up to that image. So every time we have a self-judgment, and self-judgment is simply that method we use to punish ourselves for not living up to that expectation, we're basically reinforcing an idea. So when there's a commercial, be it for clothing or for food or whatever, there's presenting an idea. And if it has power over us, meaning by that it's projecting onto us conditional love, that in order to be worthy of love, that we have to buy their product. You know, like Mick Jagger, he can't be the same. He can't be a man if he doesn't smoke the same cigarettes as me. I can't get no satisfaction. It's the same concept. We reinforce this idea of what should be the perfect us, and if we don't, then we're punishing ourselves. Well, that only has power because we said yes to it. That condition, just like the domestication of the soup of I'm a sinner, or I am not worthy, or I'm fat, all that image is just simply me saying yes to it. And it has power because I give it permission. So a commercial only has power if I give it permission to influence me in any way, shape, or form. Just like anyone judging me, or just someone telling me how I should live my life, those words only mean something if I believe them. And a commercial, they don't know me. They have no idea who I am. Yet, they're hoping that I believe its content, and it makes me doubt myself, especially my sense of self-worth, that'll make me buy their product. A product I may need or may not need. But in the essence, it's just simply another voice that we're using to reinforce our own domestication. If we see it from that point of view, the commercial has no power over us because we're the ones giving power. If we become aware that we're the ones giving power, then the power within of accepting or not accepting ourselves only lies with ourselves. So from that point of view, I reclaim my power. No commercial, no one else with their judgment can ever impose their will over me. And that is freedom. Now, if I listen and I'm being courteous, that's a totally different thing. But it all starts with myself, meaning I respect myself. If I want to respect the world around me, it starts with learning how to respect myself because I can't give what I do not have.
Absolutely. Now, we have a comment here on chat, and perhaps you can offer some words of wisdom. Bridget says she's anorexic and never talks about it. She pretends it doesn't exist. Do you have any thoughts for her?
Well, I can relate because I remember when I was 20 pounds underweight, all I can see in the mirror was fat. You know, that the agreement can be so powerful that when you look in yourself in the mirror, the attachment distorts what I perceive. Here I am, the truth, 20 pounds underweight. Yet, because I have this image of what should be. All I see is fat. When this happens, the illusion completely controls my free will. So, how to break it? Well, it's a moment of clarity, like in drug addiction or alcoholism. It's a moment of clarity. We become aware of what we've created. And in that moment of clarity, we have a choice. Do I continue to believe this illusion, or do I continue by letting go and reclaiming my sense of self and say, you know what, I don't want this anymore? For me, the moment I stopped being anorexic was the moment I realized that this is my body and my body deserves to be healthy. And that the image of perfection or beauty that I had was a total distortion. You see, perfection is something that is free from any flaw. Well, the judge in us, that part that self-domesticates, will grab it and distort it, saying, well, if you want to be perfect, you have to live up to this expectation. So every time we create this image of what should be, if we live up to it, then we're worthy of our own love. But if we fall short, then we're worthy of the judgment, of the punishment. And that's the judgment that we have and we experience when we look at ourselves in the mirror, or whenever we think of ourselves as fat. The thing is that every idea has power because we agree with it, which means perfection is everything at this very moment. What's a flaw? Well, we decide what's a flaw. A flaw is not designated until we give it a meaning. We decide what's a flaw and what isn't a flaw. And when we become aware that it's completely subject to agreement, then we realize that we've been comparing ourselves to an image that doesn't exist, that we've been using a distortion to judge ourselves. So you can say that in that moment of clarity, when you look at yourself in the mirror, you look into your eyes and you say, I am worthy of my own love. Not because I am this image of what should be, because I'm alive at this very moment. I'm alive right now. This is who I am, and I'm able to evolve. Why waste time with someone who doesn't want to be with me? Why judge myself for an image that doesn't exist? This is me, and I'm worthy of my life, and I'm worthy of love, and I'm worthy to take care of myself. And all of a sudden, everything shifts. A taco can taste so good. Food can taste so good. Going for a run feels wonderful when we have this energy to burn. But it's because of an act of love. What's the difference between looking at ourselves in the mirror with conditional love and unconditional love? If we look at ourselves in the mirror with conditional love, then all we see is flaws. But if we look at ourselves in the mirror with unconditional love, all we see is potential. For example, I can look at myself in the mirror right now and say, Miguel, you're a little overweight. You may want to lose some weight just to be healthy. That's an act of love, not because I'm trying to live up to a model, but I want to take care of this body. It's a totally different point of view. The ability to nurture, the ability to share our love for ourselves is simply to accept the truth. This very moment, who I am at this very moment, is the truth, is the culmination of every choice I have ever made that has brought me to this point. But the beautiful thing is that at any given moment, I can change my mind. If for the longest time I've been believing in my conditional love, that in this very moment, in this present moment, I can change my mind and let go of it. And if I become aware that I've been judging myself, then forgiveness. I forgive myself for believing in it. And after that, it's practice. Because it takes a while to really believe it, because we're so accustomed to that conditional love. But the thing is that once you see it, once you see the truth, that I am worthy of my own love, that I can be with whomever I want, especially I have the choice of being with someone who wants to be with me for who I am. Why waste my time with someone who doesn't? And the most beautiful thing about that is that I don't have to, you can say, sacrifice myself for someone else's belief. I see what I like, and I see who I am. And who I am this is me. Who better to love than me? I will never know what it feels like to live life in anyone else's life. I will never know what it feels like to hug in anybody else's body. I know what it feels like to live in this body. And this body is perfect. Simply because it's alive. And because it's alive, it could be anything. All it requires is to take a step. If I've discovered for all those years I've been abusing myself, then what better time to forgive ourselves? What better time to forgive, to let go? To me, forgiveness is the act of accepting the truth and letting go.
I love that. I mean, there's so many things I could talk about. I think it's so key to love yourself. I recently got married just in September, and I'm...
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm a later in life bride, first time marriage, but I believe we were finally able to come together because I learned to love myself. I used to not be able to look in the mirror and say, I love you. And I think that that's key. I also think living in the present moment. So much of the time we're in the past or we're in the future, but we're not right here in the present moment. And if you think about it, most of the time in the present moment, everything is perfect and you are okay and you do have enough.
Mm-hmm. And that's the beautiful thing. You can hear in the words the difference between conditional love and unconditional in this kind of way. You can hear domestication all over it. I want to. You can hear unconditional love. It's simply called passion. This is what I want to do. This is what allows that decision when we have that moment of clarity, when we become aware of what we've done. It's the thing that allows us to let go of that darkness. And that I want to. This is what I want in life. I want to enjoy it. I want to start. There's an image that I often share in my classes about practice and passion versus domestication. Imagine a baby or a toddler actually, who's learning how to walk. The toddler sees his or her sister walking and he wants to walk. And he has this desire to walk and eventually gathers the strength to stand up. And before he's able to take a step, he falls down. Well, he falls down, but he stands up right away because he wants to do it so badly. All of a sudden, he takes a step and he falls down. Practices up again, takes another step, falls down. Then all of a sudden, he takes one more step and then he doesn't. Then he takes another step and he doesn't. Then he falls down again and he cries because it hurt. But even in the middle of crying, he stands up one more time. Because the passion, the desire to walk, that I want to walk, is so strong. Now imagine that child with domestication. Domestication can cut in two ways. One potential is that the child will fall down and he goes, oh no, I fell down. Oh, I should have gotten in the very first time. I should have been that one baby that took the first step in the very first try. Was able to walk. And now look at me, and everyone's laughing at me, and the self-judgment can be so strong that enough, I will never walk again. I'm never going to try. I'm going to crawl for the rest of my life. Domestication or that conditional love can do that, where the self-judgment can be so painful that you don't want to ever try it again. Or it could cut the other way around. You can imagine that baby going, if God is my witness, I shall walk. And all of a sudden the desire to walk is not because they have a love to walk, it's because they don't want to feel that pain ever again. Just in the same way that my grandmother used that condition to make me eat the soup, that domestication can motivate us to do a lot of things, and that's why a lot of people use it, because it's the spur that makes someone become something, but it's not passion, it's an obsession to prevent that pain. But if we have passion, then success is the natural consequence of doing something we love to do. And that baby, that toddler, will walk because every time he fell down, he stood back up. And every time he stood up, he discovered his strength. He discovered his ability, because from that led him to so many things. So you can say from that moment of realization that this is what I want to do and how I want to live my life, you can say that's what we call ourselves Toltec. We are artists, and with complete freedom we will manifest the life we want. But if we're completely enslaved to domestication, then we will create the life that our conditions tell us we should have. Which one is the truth and which one is the illusion?
Now we've got a couple questions here for you on chat. If that's okay, I'd like to ask those. We have a comment from Hung Lo who just said, I'm recently here from China as a doctor in the hospital, and we're seeing, she says, hi. Says, we're seeing bulimia and anorexia in China for the first time in the last 5 years as we grow, which thanks for sharing that, Hung Lo. Now, Sally June wants to know, the world needs better parenting. This is a huge problem. What can we do? Now, before you answer that, and I'll talk about it at the end, next Tuesday, I'm moderating a panel, and it's unconscious parenting. So, Sally June, if you're interested in that, if you go to Reawaken Your Brilliance or under the events tab, we have a body, mind, spirit panel. One of the things I feel passionately about that, I feel if we'd start with our kids at a much younger age, the world would be a better place. But, Don Miguel, what are your thoughts on that for better parenting?
Well, I'm a father of a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old. And just about 2 years ago, I was doing this game with my little girl. You know, that staring, we look at each other's eyes, and whoever blinks wins. Well, I was looking into my little girl's eyes, and at the time she's 4 years old. And I'm looking at her, and at one point she says to me, Daddy, stop looking at me. And I says, honey, I'm looking because you're so beautiful. I says, Dad, I'm not beautiful. I don't have any makeup on. My jaw dropped. I'm like, where did you get that? It could be from any source. TV, my wife, her girlfriends. It doesn't matter. She learned it. She learned it in wherever she picked up. Because even though at the age of 4, and my son at the age of 8 or 6 at the time, they're young, but they still have free will. And they put attention to whatever they want to pay attention to. Meaning by that they follow the role models of the people they admire. When my wife found out that my son was coming, she had a little bit of a breakdown, and she says, I don't know what to do with a son. I only know girls. What am I going to do with a boy? How am I going to teach him how to respect women? And I said, honey, there's no amount of lectures that's going to work. What's going to work, or potentially work, is him watching me respect you. You see, we can't give what we do not have. If we have conditional love for ourselves, then we are going to teach our children conditional love. So it starts with us. First, the thing about becoming a parent is that we're wanting to be a parent. That with that desire alone, that makes us a better parent, period, because we want to engage the child. Now, with my little girl, I tried my best to go back and say, honey, you're beautiful just the way you are. And I was tempted. All right, now, at that moment, I was tempted to domesticate her, thinking, no, the way you become beautiful is by, accepting yourself for who you are. At that very moment, I could easily distort all my teachings in order to save her from what I think should be. But then I realized that she has a free will of her own. So I just continue saying, honey, in my eyes, you're always beautiful. You can choose whatever you want, but you're beautiful in my eyes. And I kept repeating that for a while. And then about a week or two later, I said, honey, you're beautiful just the way you are. And she says to me, I know, Dad. I know I'm beautiful just the way I am. But makeup makes me look prettier. And I'm like, wow. She created, I was so proud of her for creating a counter argument, but it just reinforced that she's an individual. So here's the thing. To be a conscious parent is to be a conscious self. Who we are, how we live our life. You see, just as I'm teaching my son to respect women, just as I'm teaching my little girl how to love herself, it all comes down to how I live my life. Because if I have that conditional love for myself, that if I abuse myself for saying if I still have that mentality of the anorexia in my mind, then right now I'd be incredibly upset because I do not look at all thin, because the truth is I'm not. But who cares? This is who I am. If I want to stay healthy, then I will lose. And right away, I'm running races. So that's the what I've done. And that's the thing. You see, the best way to teach my child how to love themselves is to see a parent that loves him or herself for who they are, to make choices for their better good. For example, I admit the truth. I was overweight. I went from the opposite to the other end. I weighed 210 pounds. Well, instead of going on a diet, which, well, actually, in a way I did. I reduced my bread intake and started eating more vegetables. But I started running. I ran Tough Mudder. I'm going to run a 10K this coming weekend, and I'm going to run a half marathon. I created this little system that allowed me to stay active. It's an act of love. I don't have to be anorexic. I don't have to starve myself, but I'm going to engage in something healthy that, whether I lose weight or not, I'm keeping my body active. My children are going to see that. My children are going to see how I take care of myself. They're going to see how I interact with my wife and how I take care of her, and how she and I interact with respect. You see, they might listen to their friends. They might listen to other adults. My father says, if you're not the one domesticating them, someone else will. And the only difference is that they will really push on conditional love. If I domesticate them, I can do it with compassion, meaning by that action reaction. For every action I take, there's a consequence, which is respect. So the very first thing is to raise a loving child, to raise a child that values themselves, that loves themselves for who they are. The parent, the individual, you, just like me, it starts with us. As a parent, it starts with us. We can't give what we do not have. I know I sound like a broken record, but it's the truth. If I have conditional love for myself, then I've got nothing but conditional love to give. But if I have unconditional love for myself, then there's the opportunity to give unconditional love to everyone around me. And the possibility for harmony is there.
We have sound effects here. We like to amnonize that. And we've got a couple comments and questions that are kind of similar and would love for your feedback. Bridget asks, what's one thing I can do every day to help with my self-esteem? And Cindy writes, we do have to love ourselves. I have the opposite problem of obesity. I'm 54 and still have yet to totally love myself. It's an addiction and a self-esteem issue, not unlike anorexia. So do you have some advice for people who want to improve their self-esteem?
Well, it starts out with the most basic thing. You see, we can have mantras, we can have affirmations, but they only work if you believe in them. That's the thing. When we say them out loud, we give power to the words we say via our intent. If it's been years and years of loving ourselves conditionally and loving ourselves in that way, then just like the baby who's learning how to walk, we start from the very beginning. In my life, one of the things I did for myself is that I started from the very beginning saying, this is what I like and this is what I don't like. And I started it with food. I started with food and basically accepting this flavor, and I enjoyed it. Then I eat something and I didn't. As basic as this is, it allows me the most basic form of expression. This is what I like. This is what I don't like. Then when I'm taking a shower, I close my eyes and I allow the water to fill me, to allow me to sense it. And I can feel my body and I say thank you. An expression of gratitude. This is my body. This is what I like, and this is what I don't like. To allow my ability to enjoy a walk, to enjoy turning on a TV if I want to, or reading a book, learning the most basic things that I like in my life, and saying, this is an act of kindness for myself. And the things I don't like, the things that, well, I don't like not because I have a belief that I don't like, but because I have an experience. Like I taste something, ooh, I didn't like that taste. I didn't like how that felt. I didn't like how that made me feel. As opposed to an idea dictating shoulds or have tos, I allow my body to tell me the truth. I like this. I don't like that. And with that, we start a very basic understanding of what we enjoy in life. And little by little, we begin to expand on it. Just like the baby who learns how to walk, practice makes the master. Meaning by that, we're not afraid to fail. If we taste something we don't like, we'll tell ourselves the truth. I don't like it. You can say that this is the most basic form of expressing compassion for myself. Little by little, I begin to expound on it, discovering more things that I like in life, discovering that threshold that makes me say, I'm full, and respecting it and stop eating. Or that threshold that says, I'm tired, and I stop. Not because I have to, but because I want to. You see, we begin to experience our own compassion. Yes, there are moments finishing a project is a requirement. Not because it's a condition, but because we enjoy finishing a project. Especially if I get to experience the joy of producing it. What I'm saying to you is incredibly basic. But sometimes, especially when we don't have the experience of understanding or feeling what we like and what we don't like, sometimes going to the very beginning allows us that foundation to say, this is what I enjoy in life. And when I make choices based on how I enjoy my life, I begin to love myself. Especially because this is the life I'm living. I am not living anyone else's. I'm not living or experiencing life through someone else's point of view. I'm living life through this body, through these eyes. And what a wonderful opportunity that is.
That's beautiful. I want to switch gears a little bit. It's Nightfelt of Wisdom, but I want to talk a little bit about attachments now, because that's the name of the book. How do we create attachments?
Well, if we can understand domestication, and then we understand what an attachment is, which is making something that's not a part of us a part of us. We annex it, and we use our emotional body to do that because we invest of ourselves emotionally. So if we understand domestication and combine that with attachment, then the worst thing that can happen, especially if we base our conditional love on it, the worst thing can happen is for it to change. Everything in life changes. Everything can evolve. My body changes and moves and flows. It can get thin, it can get big, it can be young, and it will grow old. Everything changes because in life everything evolves, especially ideas. A thought only exists for as long as I believe in it. Thus, every idea I have is subject completely to agreement. And if I become attached to it, then I don't want it to change. So, especially if my conditional love is based on it. So we grow our domestication in that way. Imagine awareness like a flower. and I'm going to use the levels of attachment in this way. And I'm also going to say my grandmother's question to me: are you using knowledge, or is knowledge using you? At level 1, the authentic self. Imagine a flower is completely open, completely aware that I can go in any direction in life because I am a living being and I'm able to express it, which is the answer is I am a living being regardless of what I think or believe about myself. At level 2, preference. I use knowledge as an instrument for transformation, and because I have awareness of my authentic self, I'm able to attach and detach because I know who I am, which means I can engage something, I can attach myself and then detach when the moment is over because I never lost sight of who I was. I never lost awareness. So you can say this flower pulsates, opens and closes with every moment in life. At level 3, identity, I attach myself to something, but even after the moment is over, the flower now does not open. And the answer to my grandmother's question is, I use knowledge to give me my sense of self, who I am. Thus, I use my identity to give me a definition of self. Meaning by that now I become attached to an idea that of what I should be, or what I am, simply by giving myself a name. And when the moment is over, I don't detach. Now here's the thing about level 1, level 2, and level 3. I'm still able to engage the world. Meaning by that, if you and I were here present and I reached out and shook your hand and we hold hands, that bond is the truth, the bond that unites us. At level 1, we have a relationship for as long as you and I say yes. At level 3, the difference that the relationship is what matters. The only difference is that I'm calling myself something. I'm giving myself an identity. It could be Toltec, it could be a vegan, it could be a goth, whatever. But whatever it is that even after that moment is over, I'm calling myself that. But it's not a basis of domestication. It's just simply this moment where I define myself. At level 4, I attach myself and the flower closes even more. At level 4, internalization, I begin to domesticate myself with conditional love. I can grab this identity and domesticate myself, which means the answer to my grandmother's question is that I will use knowledge to give me the rules by which I live my life, especially the rules that says I'm worthy of my own love. So the flower closes even more, and at level 5, it's completely closed. The answer to my grandmother's question is knowledge has complete control of me, an idea that I'm so attached to because who I am is completely defined by that. You can say that in a lot of traditions, an attachment to materialism is a concept, but imagine that you were domesticated with the idea that he who finishes with all the toys at the end wins. Meaning by that the only way you're worthy of love is to have all these material things. So if you don't have it, then you're not worthy of love. You reject yourself. Then that's conditional love. It has nothing to do with materialism, but the domestication we have to, or the motivator to acquire materialism. At that point, domestication has corrupted something, especially that of materialism. To have possessions simply means that I'm worthy of love from that point of view. And at level 5, it's a complete distortion and a complete battle. So you can say the work that we do is to begin to open that awareness. It starts with recognizing that I am worthy of my own love, that an idea simply exists because I agree with it. Thus, if we use the Toltec tools of transformation, the 5th agreement, be skeptical but learn to listen, is that moment where we use doubt as an ally that allows us to give scrutiny to what we believe and we decide to let go. Like that moment of clarity that stops us from being bulimic or anorexic or alcoholic or drug addict or any of those things. It's a moment of clarity where we realize that we have a choice. And the choice is to continue to believe in it or to begin to let it go. And because I want to let go of it, boom, the flower opens. Then at to go from level 4 to level 3, where that's where the 4 agreements comes in, as well as Deepak Chopra, Wayne Dyer, the Bible, the Quran, Krishna, Buddha, psychiatry, psychology, AA. Humanity has created so many beautiful traditions that allows us to let go of conditional love and embrace unconditional love. The thing is that we've corrupted it with our domestication. So we become aware of how we've used our word to domesticate ourselves and forgive ourselves. The moment we become aware and we apply all these instruments in the same way the baby learns how to walk, meaning that it only becomes an instrument when we choose to engage it. For example, with the 4 agreements, if I'm so attached to my domestication, I can easily turn them into the 4 conditions of my personal freedom. But if I use them as an instrument that reminds me how I want to use my intent, then I will use them to help me make a choice in that moment when it's most important. In that moment of always doing my best. And I begin to let go and accept my truth. This is who I am, and I'm worthy of love. And I forgive myself for every trespass I've given to myself, and the flower opens. To let go from level 3 to level 2 is becoming aware that an identity is an empty symbol whose definition is completely subject to an agreement. You won't find me in a definition or an identity. You will find me in the action of saying yes. An agreement is a word that describes the action of me saying yes, which is intent. And there we go, almost automatically from level 3 to 1, because all of a sudden the flower opens and closes with pulsating of moment of life until we let go at the end of our life when we return to a divinity.
That's amazing. We're almost out of time, so I just have one last quick question for you, and we'll give you a chance to talk about how to get the book. This is, I want to share a comment from a longtime viewer, Rebecca, who said this may be the most important show of yours that I've ever attended, truly, and I wanted to share that with you. But I'm all about...
Thank you for the opportunity.
I do this show because I want people to take action. So you've given us an amazing amount of wisdom tonight, but what one step can people take right after the show, before they go to bed or in the morning, to reawaken their brilliance?
One step?
Oh, yep, one action item.
One action?
Yes.
Close your eyes and breathe. When you breathe, you let the air in, and the air is going to nurture you. When you exhale, you nurture the environment that's nurturing you. The gratitude and the generosity of this interaction, that symbiotic reaction, is being in harmony with life. Allow yourself to enjoy this constant communion with life. When you breathe, allow yourself to enjoy it, saying, this is a wonderful moment to be me, because I'm enjoying life and I'm worthy of my own love simply because I'm alive at this very moment.
Outstanding. I'm going to have to play this again so I can remember to do that. Now, can you tell us your website, how they can get the book? And you do have a radio show. Do you have a weekly radio show?
Yes.
Classes, all that good stuff.
Well, my radio show is called The Way of the Desert. It's every Wednesday at noon Pacific, 2 p.m. Central on the co-creatornetwork.com. You can find more information about me at miguelruizjr.com. And the 5 Levels of Attachment is available everywhere. You can get it on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And you can also pre-order my next book, which is Living a Life of Awareness, which comes out in December. But above all else, the most important thing is just simply realize that you're the master of your own life. You'll grab all these instruments, and you're the one transforming your life. And that's your beautiful present for yourself.
Well, thank you. I would love to have you on again. We can talk more about the book or your new book. Whenever you want, you are welcome here.
Judy, thank you so much for the opportunity. Once again, congratulations on your marriage. I wish you and your husband many decades of love, happiness, and joy.
Thank you. It started off well, so hopefully we'll continue.
Will do.
Thank you. And I want to remind everyone, next Tuesday is our live online class on conscious parenting. If you're looking for different ways from a body, mind, spirit perspective to raise your kids, please check it out. You can look at the events page here on Nissan Communications. Go to reawakenyourbrilliance.com for more information. With the code PARENT, you can save $5, make the class only $20. All right, everyone, we'll see you here next week. Bye now.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, Sundays, 9 a.m. till noon. Carrie's Psychic Cafe with Carrie Silkowski, Sundays, 8 till 9 p.m. Health In with Debbie Bruck, Mondays, 11 a.m. till noon. Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Mondays, 1 till 2 p.m. Lessons of Vietnam with NCVVI members the second and fourth Wednesday of each month from 7:30 till 8:30 p.m. Reawaken Your Brilliance with Julie Seibert, Wednesdays, 9 till 10 p.m. And if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it at www.nissancommunications.com. Sponsored by ThatVidBlasterGuy.com, CarolinaApparel.com, and DeltaForce.net.